The main cash crop of the new North American settlements was corn, wheat, tobacco, or indigo. Tobacco, right. Notice this is from your first test.
Yeah.
You get 5 from each test on your final, from the first 2. This colony became a popular area for heretics. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, or South Carolina? Rhode Island. Why?
That's what they exiled everybody.
Yeah, that's where they sent everybody when they were excommunicated. The anti-slavery movement began in the North with this religious group. The Quakers, right. The first quote-unquote president of the United States. John Hanson. What's the difference between old George and John?
George was first elected.
Washington was the first elected president. Poor communication, and poor this often led to disaster for farmers trying to sell farm products. Transportation, right. Or roads, I'll take either one for that one. But I'm pretty sure it's transportation. If you get B or C, then we'll work with it. But I would put B. The inventor of the cotton gin. Which of the following is not a reason why railroads were a superior form of transportation? The rates, right. They were a little bit higher, but if you paid a little more, your stuff would get there twice as fast, and you'd make more money on it. Richard and Robert Hose Power Press was responsible for what? Which one of the following? All of them. Before the printing press came along, who could afford books? Who was very wealthy. Anybody ever see the Demi Moore version of the Scarlet Letter?
Yeah.
She is. They don't like her because she has this vast library of books, and she's sharing books with the Reverend Dinsdale. Of course, later she shares something else with him, but mainly a child. But she has. Her husband was wealthy, so he had a big collection of books. So only the wealthy would have books. McCulloch versus Maryland in 1819 upheld the constitutionality of this. The Second Bank of the United States, that what you said? Yeah, that's it. Who killed the bank the first time?
Andrew Jackson.
Jackson. I'm not sure that date's right. I'm not going to guess that. But it's that one. This doesn't look right. The invention of this would revolutionize the production of guns, clocks, and other goods.
Interchangeable parts?
C, interchangeable parts. Who was the first one to come up with it?
Henry Ford.
Huh?
Henry Ford.
This is a little before Henry's time.
That was a car.
It was a clock guy. What was his name? Remember?
Yeah.
Chauncey, remember? Took on the wrong partners and lost his shirt. Yeah. Jim Bridger, Jedediah Smith, and James Walker were what? Who roamed untamed America in the early 1800s. Mountain men, right. The Long Hunters were before the Mountain Men. They were actually the ones that came over from the East Coast into the Tennessee Valley and the Ohio Valley first. And contrary to popular belief, Daniel Boone was not the first Long Hunter to come into this area. This might be an interesting bonus question. The first guy's name was Elijah Walden. That might be an interesting bonus question. There's a prison in, what's that place? Duffield named after him. Walden. Daniel Boone was on his came a little bit later. Just like Christopher Columbus never discovered America, Daniel Boone was not the first long hunter to come into the Tennessee area. Sorry. But that's the facts. Yes.
What did you say the guy was that came up with the interchangeable parts?
His name was Chauncey Jerome. And he was the one that made that clock that everybody could have. From 1825 to 1860, the average American income doubled to this amount. Look for a clue in the question.
Double down was 200.
300. I have this knack for building in clues without knowing it. Read carefully. So it's 300. Shoot, I make that in a week.
What's the answer there?
Huh?
What's the answer there?
300. The clue was doubled. Equality of talents or education or wealth cannot be provided by human institutions is a quote by whom?
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson, right. Because he had basically worked himself up to having wealth. And no institution had given it to him. So. To influence the Cherokee tribal members to move out of Georgia, the authorities kidnapped this man. D, right, John Ross. Why he has a normal name, I don't know. But that's who it is. Sequoia, what he was, one of the, no, that's Sacagawea, never mind. I'm getting my natives mixed up. This free black carpenter was planning to seize the city of Charleston to raise black liberty standards. A, Denmark Vesey. What happened to him?
He was executed.
He got hung. Which of the following was part of the Whig ideology? Are they for big business or for the common man? So which one of those would they be opposed to?
Hard work.
No. They think people should be able to take care of themselves and the government shouldn't have to do it. So what are they going to oppose? They're going to oppose what? Humanitarian legislation. They don't think the government should have to take care of the people. They should be able to take care of themselves. Think of them as Republicans. They don't care about anybody but themselves. So yeah, there you go. Which of the following is not a result of the spread of Romanticism?
Decreased education.
Decreased education. What happened to education as a result of this? It's going to increase, right? This is when the number of literate persons will increase greatly. And a lot of them will be women. By about, I don't know, the turn of the century, there were more women that could read than men. And across the board, that's about like it is today in third world countries. Eastern State Penitentiary used this method to rehabilitate prisoners so they would open up to God.
Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. I want to go to Eastern State Penitentiary. Oh, I just want to go on a tour. If I get to investigate, bully, but yeah. I want to go
send you on your own.
Huh?
They'll probably send you on your own.
There. Don't scare me. Harriet Tubman devised this system to help Slaves escaped slavery. Underground Railroad. How do you like that one? Canadian Transit. It could be a code name for it. So, yeah. Which is not a result of the Seneca Falls Convention. Sure, did we talk about this? Pretty sure we did.
Women gain more control.
Pretty sure it's this one. Women don't get the right to vote until when?
19th Amendment.
The 19th Amendment. So they don't get the right to vote. That's the one thing that is not a result of the convention. They do get more control over their property. There's actually a little house episode about that. And the divorce is easier, but the husband will automatically get custody of the children. And they can finally bring legal action in court. So if their husband beats them up, they can take them to court. Which of the following was the duty of the plantation mistress? All of them. Somebody give me a real life and a myth of the antebellum life on the plantation. A real life example. Think of Gone with the Wind and think of what we talked about in class. What did Gone with the Wind portray life on the plantation like?
Slaves could pretty much do what they wanted to, no matter what.
Right, and then what about real life?
They had to do what they were told to do.
Right.
When they were told to do it.
Exactly. Sort of like today when you have a job. There's no difference, really. Southern-born white people were often given nicknames like cracker, clay eaters, white trash, and sandpillars. Rednecks are something that come later. Hillbillies are in Missouri. And yokels are in Springfield on the Simpsons. Cletus. A slave that was put in charge of a group of fellow slaves.
Slave driver.
Slave driver, right. This phrase, coined by John L. O'Sullivan, was meant to encourage people to go west. Manifest destiny. I actually got that line from a song. The Go West Young Man. It's a country song. Which of the following was not a characteristic of James K. Polk? It's going to be A. Because he was very motivated. He was also calculating, deceitful, and had no sense of humor. Harriet Beecher Stowe's book that painted an immoral picture of slavery. Uncle Tom's Cabin. These are actually names of other books written about slaves. If you really wanted to read them. So. I've never read Uncle Tom's Cabin. I might do that over Christmas break. A potato famine in this country in 1848 brought in a bunch of people from another country. Ireland, right. The potato famine. And there was also a revolution in Europe. There's always some kind of revolution going on in Europe at this time. The winner of the 1856 presidential election. Buchanan, right. The Civil War began with the Southern attack on this fort. What happened to that guy when he went out there? Do you remember from the story? He thought he was drinking brandy. What did he drink? And they had to save his life. Didn't me, I just, he probably got killed later anyway. Which of the following was not a reason to keep Tennessee in the Confederate States? That should be which of the following is a reason. I'm sorry. Was a reason. All of the above, right. I apologize for that. It's not on the test like that, so. I changed the test, forgot to change the PowerPoint. The introduction of the Enfield and Springfield rifles increased shot accuracy from 80 yards to how many? 400, right. A good marksman or a good sharpshooter could hit a target up to 800 feet. A really good one could hit a target at 1,000 feet with this gun. And what's the difference between this one and the old guns?
They weren't muzzle loaders.
Well, the old ones weren't muzzle loaders, but what about the barrel?
Oh, it was riveted.
It was
Rifling in it.
rifled, yeah. You had the grooves in the barrel as compared to the smoothbore rifles that they had before. And when you get the grooves, it's going to spin the bullet faster, and when it comes out, it's going to go further and be more accurate. Which of the following was not an advantage of the North during the Civil War? Home field advantage, right. The loss of this Confederate general in 1863 devastated the Confederacy. What happened to him? You remember?
Chopped off first, and then
Why did they chop off his arm though? What did they do? What happened?
He got shot by one.
He got shot by his own men because he forgot the password and just barged into camp and they shot him. Then they had to cut off his arm, and then he was so loved by his men that they had a funeral for his arm. And then he died a few days later, so. That's crazy. But, you know. John Wilkes Booth allegedly assassinated President Lincoln in Ford's Theater on this date when he shot him.
he died 2 days later.
He died the next morning.
Oh, the next one? That's 2 days later. Is it the 9th?
He shot him on the 14th, right. He died on the 15th. And Mary Todd went in the room one time the whole time he was laying there dying. And she sat out in the parlor, sipping tea and acting like nothing was bothering her. She's probably making fun of him, though, her. The first southern state to be brought back into the Union after the war ended. Who was the last state out?
South Carolina.
The last state to go out at the beginning. Tennessee, so they were the last out and the first back in. Nathan Bedford Forrest founded this group to terrorize carpetbaggers, scallywags, and freedmen. Okay. Now they have 4 Ks, but for our purposes, we just need 3. Which of the following amendments was passed to prevent the South from denying black suffrage? Not the one that ended slavery, the one that kept them from denying black suffrage. The 14th Amendment, right. The 13th Amendment ends slavery. The 14th makes sure that the South can't let the freed Africans not vote. Anybody believe that? January 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified ending slavery. 1853, President Franklin Pierce purchased 45,000 acres of Mexican desert in order to build Transcontinental Railroad. That's a fun word to say. Huh?
ACBD.
Well, Transcontinental Railroad. Transcontinental, that's just a great word. All right. We went through 40 of them? Wow.
Quick.
All right.
Was there 40?
That was 40.
Which one?
That's okay. I've got 85.
Y'all get 39?
Okay.
You Sure, there's not 39.
Maybe the first one was, yeah, the first one, the first one counts as one. I told you it's been a long day of math. Okie dokie. This is random, these do not have numbers on them. If I pick one we've already went over, I will throw it to the side.
Is that all of them?
Except for the matching part.
Come from here.
Huh? Okay. Just did that one. And by 1850, Wisconsin and this state were major wheat producers. Is it Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, or Michigan?
What's the option?
Huh?
What's the option?
Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, or Michigan? Illinois, right. Usually I'm a little bit louder so we don't hear that, but this senator was beaten mercilessly by a cane by Preston Brooks on May 22nd, 1865. Abraham Lincoln, Stephen Douglas, Henry Clay, or Charles Sumner? Charles Sumner.
Can you read the question one more time?
This senator was beaten with a cane by Preston S. Brooks, May 22nd, 1856. Which of the following was part of Henry Clay's Compromise of 1850? California would be admitted to the Union as a free state. Slavery was abolished in the District of Columbia. Rigorous slave codes were enacted for Southern slave owners. The rest of the acquired Mexican territory was divided into two new territories, and popular sovereignty would decide the status of that state as far as slavery, or all of the above. All of the above. The bloodiest battle of the Civil War was fought here, at Shiloh, Antietam, Fredericksburg, or Atlanta.
Antietam.
Antietam, right.
Can you spell that?
Antietam. We didn't go over this one in class, but it's in your slides, your PowerPoints under the government part for the Confederacy. I'm not going to tell you the answer. You're going to have to try to figure it out. Jefferson Davis's Secretary of State from 1862 to 1865. Is it Robert Toombs, Judah P. Benjamin, Robert Walker, or Robert Hunter, or Leroy Walker?
Jefferson Davis is Secretary of State.
Make sure that's in chapter 16. I know it's in there. The Secretary of State from 1862 to 1865 was Judah P. Benjamin, which is interesting because what does his last name tell you that his religion is? Judah P. Benjamin. He's Jewish, right? The fragments from the first round at Fort Sumter exploded and formed this over the fort: a Confederate flag, an angel, a big victory symbol, or a palmetto tree. Palmetto tree. The Emancipation Proclamation, signed into law on September 22, 1862, was not effective because it was not enforced or supported by the U.S. Supreme Court. It did not apply to the southern states west of the Mississippi River. It did not free any slaves because the South was in a state of rebellion, or Lincoln was assassinated before the document went into effect. What was the question? The Emancipation Proclamation, signed into law September 22, 1862, was not effective because... Right, it didn't free any slaves because the South was in a state of rebellion. And if I'm not mistaken, the document actually says that it frees slaves only in those states that are not in a state of rebellion. I think it says that. I'd have to go back and reread it. But I've actually read the thing, so... A blank blank had replaced the self-production system that had once sustained independent American farmers. The point system, the paperless system, the barter system, or the commercial system?
Barter system.
Read it again. Will you read the question again? For the answers then?
Commercial system. Remember? Franklin won that debate or won that battle because it was barter, it was self-production, but it changes to a commercial system. Following represents the kind of friendly relations between soldiers on opposing sides during the Civil War. They visited each other while encamped for the winter, had conversations across fields, fences, and streams, exchanged sugar, tobacco, and newspapers from home, or all of the above. What else would they do? You remember?
They gamble, play cards.
They gambled and played cards together. What happened during battles and after battles? Think about it. We just talked about it. Would they just leave them laying on the battlefield and not give them a drink of water? And the interesting thing is that, especially if you were a Southern soldier, and you saw a Union soldier dying, and you knew they were going to die, you would sit there and offer that guy comfort until he died, and then you'd steal his shoes and whatever else he had. But they wouldn't do it while he was still alive, because they did that out of respect. So. This officially ended Reconstruction in 1877. The Compromise of 1850, the Compromise of 1856, the Missouri Compromise, or the Compromise of 1877. If you missed that one, I'm going to hit you in the head with the hammer. The Compromise of 1877. The clue is in the question. Canals will lower the price of shipping goods from Buffalo to New York City from 19 cents per mile to blank cents per mile. 3, 5, 7, or 9.
From what?
Canals will lower the price of shipping goods from Buffalo to New York City from 19 cents a mile to blank cents per mile. 3, 5, 7, or 9. Take a guess.
5.
3. Yeah, 3 cents. Notice they're all odd numbers. 3, 5, 7, 9. I could have been mean and threw in an even number, but I didn't do that. Uniforms made from bits of unused thread and recycled cloth coined this phase, still in use today. Recycled, shoddy, bohemian, or green. Shoddy, right. They used cloth called shoddy to make uniforms in the South. This is what was left over. SHODDY. You've ever bought something and it's just horrible and it just falls apart and you're like, man, this is a shoddy work if I've ever seen it? There you go.
Like purses.
Yeah, like I had a purse. I bought a brand new and paid like $15 for the thing. I carried it 2 weeks and the handle just fell off of it. When I was walking one day, I'm like, what the? I took it back and said, look, I've had it 2 weeks. And I don't carry that. I did carry a rock in there, but it's for a different reason. But just when I get nervous, I do this. It's called my worry rock. And I mean, it's not that heavy. It's just about like that. And it doesn't weigh nothing. And I'm like, look. You know, this thing just broke. I mean, it was sitting on the table. And I just pulled the handle up a little bit and plop. Really? Alright. Which of the following describes Civil War camp life? Bad food, primitive medical care, bed bug and lice infestations, or all of the above? All of the above. What kind of races would they like to have? Lice races, yeah. That always icks people out. I love that. Alright. Which of the following is a significant first that originates during the Civil War? Submarines and armored warships with torpedoes, trench warfare, railroad and telegraph used for military purposes, or all of the above? What else was used in this war that wasn't used in a war that we had before?
Grenade.
I'm thinking broader. What makes the grenade?
Gunpowder. Or
Bigger. You have to have somewhere to build the grenade, right? So you're going to be dependent on industrial, right? You were getting there. You have to have certain things to get the grenade made. So you were getting there. We did that one. Okay, because most freed slaves could not afford to buy land after the war, most were forced into sharecropping, wage labor for the government, factory work, or low-paying jobs. Sharecropping, right. My dad was actually, well, his dad was a sharecropper, so this was in the 1940s. It was just another form of slavery. Horses were introduced to the western plains of North America by the English, Portuguese, French, or Spanish. Spanish, right. Which of the following people was not a candidate for president in the election of 1860? Abraham Lincoln, John C. Breckinridge, Andrew Johnson, or John Bell?
You say 1860?
Yes.
Franken, British, or whatever.
You want me to read the choices again? Abraham Lincoln, John C. Breckinridge, Andrew Johnson, or John Bell?
Abraham Lincoln.
Who won the election of 1860? Abraham Lincoln. That's why the South seceded. So of those,
Is it Bell?
well,
No.
Andrew
The other
Johnson.
guy.
Andrew Johnson. Why was Andrew Johnson not a presidential candidate?
You already been president? Or
No. He ran as somebody's VP candidate.
when?
And once that person was assassinated, he becomes president. Johnson. Johnson was his VP candidate. You know, like Cheney and that Biden guy with the teeth. Man's got huge choppers, I'm telling you. Okay. Which of the following was not one of the family migration patterns on the Overland Trail? Large wagon trains before 1845, the trip took 6 months, larger families, or newly married couples. Why? Why would a larger family not go? Cost too much. You needed at least $600 per person to make the journey. Which of the following is a direct result of the attack on Fort Sumter? The North rallied behind Lincoln, eased some of the tension between the North and the South, removed all blocks for Lincoln, or all of the above?
All the above.
All the above, right. It also united the South as well. It brought the South together as a more cohesive nation. Abraham Lincoln died on this date. April 14th, April 4th, April 5th, or April 15th?
April 15th.
April 15th. Make sure you read those two questions very carefully. Sickle cell disease, a disease caused by misshapen red blood cells, protected slaves from diseases like malaria, arthritis, respiratory infections, or miscarriages. Malaria, right. The author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Harriet Beecher Stowe, right. The winner of the 1852 presidential election. Winfield Scott, Franklin Pierce, John P. Hale, or James Buchanan?
Franklin Pierce.
Franklin Pierce, right. And who is he like related to?
Bush.
Well, not so much George H.W., but
George Senior.
Barbara.
Or Barbara.
Right.
They've also found that Obama and Palin, and they're all related somehow.
Who is it?
Obama is like Sarah Palin's ninth cousin removed on some side.
That's
Everyone's
scary.
related, so.
They're all related.
Huh.
My
The aristocracy does tend to inbreed. What? But I didn't say that. Keep that. No. Alright, as a result of the Second Great Awakening, by 1840, an estimated blank % of adults were associated with the church. No, is it 25, 50, 60, or 30? Chapter 12. Let me look. 50%. Which of the following is not an aspect of factory life? Tedious, repetitive work, strict work rules, a week's paid vacation, or 30-minute lunch breaks. Week's paid vacation, all right. Of the 15,000 Cherokee Indians who were forced to march west on the infamous Trail of Tears, this percentage died along the way. 15, 50, 25, or 75? Would you say 25? It's 25. 1/4 of them died on the way. Few trees, stinging bugs, extremely hot summers, and this were some of the perils of life in the high grasses of the prairie. Mild winters, severe droughts, extremely cold winters, or buffalo stampedes. You need the choices again? Mild winters, severe droughts, extremely cold winters, or buffalo stampedes? Extremely cold winters. What happens when they cut down the trees? Right. My nose is stopping up. Which of the following is not a characteristic of slave housing? Usually had a small cabin with a dirt floor, usually had wooden chimneys, had brick or stone chimneys. Some were made of a material called tabby. Wooden chimneys, why? Right. The interesting thing is that even the chimneys weren't attached to the house. They were built, but then they were held up with, like, you know, if you're building a wall or something, you have the two 2x4s that go down the side and hold it in place. They would build a frame like this to go around the chimney, and if the chimney caught on fire, all they had to do was knock that frame out from under it, and it would fall away and not burn the house down. This was like a common practice building all kinds of cabins and things like that. Which of the following is not a book written by Nathaniel Hawthorne? The Scarlet Letter, The House of Seven Gables, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, or Moby Dick?
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick. Who wrote Moby Dick? Herman Melville, right. The Northern Battle Strategy Plan, or the Northern Battle Strategy was called this: the Stranglehold Plan, Divide and Conquer Plan, the Python Plan, or the Anaconda Plan.
What was the question?
The Northern Battle Strategy. Is it Stranglehold, the Divide and Conquer, Python, or Anaconda? Anaconda, right. Because an anaconda is known to squeeze its prey, and that's what it's called. Because they didn't really know about pythons then. Which of the following is not a characteristic of the yeoman farmers? Yeoman farmers. They were the backbone of Southern society, farmed 200 or more acres, 80% owned their land, or most were semi-subsistence farmers. Say again?
The 200 acres.
The 200 acres. How much did they usually farm?
I don't know, it was like 150 or
160, yeah. Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant here on April 9, 1865? Richmond, Atlanta, Appomattox Courthouse, or Gettysburg? Appomattox Courthouse. In 1607, an English settlement was established in America and was named Georgetown, Virginia City, Charlestown, or Jamestown? Jamestown. Where was Charlestown?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, right. Which of the following characterizes poor whites in the South? Were usually squatters, were largely illiterate, suffered malnutrition, made up about 5% of the white population, or all of the above?
Characterize what in the South?
Huh?
Characterize what in the South? For what?
Poor whites. South Carolina seceded from the Union on this day in 1860. December 10th, December 25th, December 20th, or December the 27th.
Can you repeat the question, please?
South Carolina seceded from the Union on this day in 1860. December 10, December 25, December 20, or December 27. Try again.
27.
And
What's left? 20th. Which of the following is not an ideology of the Republican Party in 1856? Free labor, favored temperance, attacked the planter class, or wanted to expand slavery?
To expand slavery.
Right, they did not want to expand slavery. Did they want to stamp it out altogether, though?
No.
Was that Abraham Lincoln's goal once he was elected? No. He never said anything about ending slavery. We just assumed. The Confederates found that this weapon was particularly effective in the bombardment of Fort Sumter. 5-inch mortars, 10-inch mortars, standard cannonballs, or hot shots?
Hot shot.
What was a hot shot?
Heated up cannonball.
A heated up cannonball, right. The black belt refers to this: the new karate rink at the local dojo, the area of the South with the highest concentration of slaves, new lands opened up after the War of 1812, or none of the above.
Is it the slave one?
It was soil for cotton, wasn't it?
Let me read the choices again. The new karate rink at the dojo, we know that's not it. New lands opened up after the War of 1812, the area of the South with the highest concentration of slaves.
The new lands.
The new lands opened up, right. Now see, you gotta read very carefully. Tests are not easy. Everybody says my tests are easy. No, they're not. I still have somebody miss that question. Because they're not reading. Fighting an offensive war, fighting in unfamiliar territory, and blame were disadvantages of the North during the Civil War. Close to supply lines, soldiers not as accomplished with guns, soldiers not as used to rugged living, or both B and C. B and C, right. Which of the following describes the character of Andrew Jackson? Arrogant, slow-witted, a man of action, Wait a minute, let me reread those answers. A, man of action, B, arrogant, C, slow-witted, or D, both A and B? Both A and B. He was anything but slow-witted. He did like to have parties, though. What was so controversial about his marriage? She wasn't divorced when they got married. She didn't know that she wasn't divorced, though. So they actually remarried after, like right before he was elected or right after he was elected. So, gambling, swearing, drinking, and this were some of the common behaviors of miners during the gold rush. A, going to church, B, dancing, C, fighting, D, seeking female company, or E, both C and D. C and D, you're right. I like to focus a little bit on the seedy side of history because it's not all goody two-shoes and white dresses and you know, virgin brides. It's not how it was. You had people that had kids out of wedlock. I mean, just look at Gone with the Wind, where Mrs. O'Hara came back and told that guy that his child had died, and he pretended he didn't know anything about his kid. So it still happened. During the 1860s, most slaves will work in factories, on farms, on loading docks, or as sailors. Farms. February 7, 1861. This southern state seceded from the Union. Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, or Texas?
What was the date again?
February 7, 1861. Texas, right. Which of the following was not a way in which soldiers fought boredom in the camps? Wrestling matches, playing poker or dice games, lice races, or reading the classics? Reading the classics. Why? Because a lot of them can't read. They're murder with a gun, but they can't read their own name. Which of the following, or which of these was part of the Constitution of the Confederate States of America? Provide punishment for counterfeiting money, regulated naval forces, the President and Vice President would hold office for 1 6-year term, President can only serve 1 term, or all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above, right. They actually put in their Constitution that the President and Vice President could only serve 1 term in office, and that would be a 6-year term. And they've been trying to adopt this ever since the Confederacy fell, because it was such a good idea. Anybody agree with me on that one?
Yes.
If they serve 1 6-year term, they can't run again, so they have more time to concentrate on actually doing something than whose feet they have to kiss to be reelected. So I like that idea. I would vote for that. That's just me. One of my favorite questions. What was required to pass the induction physicals for both armies during the Civil War? 2 eyes, 2 teeth, 1 arm, or both A and B? A and B. You had to have 2 eyes. Of course, you had to have 2 arms to shoot. Why would you have to have at least 2 teeth? There you go. It's just easier to show you. They wouldn't have battles when it rained. Why?
Because your gunpowder.
Gunpowder got wet. You can't shoot wet gunpowder. That's why they don't have a lot of battles in the winter. Because back then, before global warming, we actually got snow in the South. So they couldn't have battles during the winter. Because the snow would get their gunpowder wet too. Gambling halls, brothels, theft, and this were part of the social and moral decay that occurred during the Civil War. Another one of them decay questions. Wild parties, pillaging parties, Tupperware parties, or arson parties? If you had to guess one, which one would you say it is?
Arson.
Is it wild parties, pillaging parties, Tupperware parties, or arson parties? No, not quite. Wild parties. Everybody was partying. You have a war, everybody parties. During the Vietnam War, the hippies were partying. So there you go. And dodging the draft. If you have any for history too, I'll get off on a jig about that one day, but I have a big problem with that. October 1859, this man sees the unguarded federal army at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and tried to create a slave revolt. Stephen Douglas, John Henry, John Brown, or George Custer? John Brown, right. Remember John Brown's Ferry. Let's see. Micah Pratt came up with a way to mass produce this popular, and still popular today because you have to wear them, consumer item. Shoes, socks, hats, or girdles? Shoes, right. Micah Pratt. We got time for two more, then I'm going to let you go early. I can't give them all to you. That wouldn't be right. The Boston Massacre took place on this date: January 1, 1607, April 1, 1765, March 5, 1770, July 4, 1776.
What was the question again?
The Boston Massacre took place on this date: January 1, 1607, April 1, 1765, March 5, 1770, July 4, 1776.
March 5th.
March 5th, right. March 5th, 1770. You can automatically discount the 1607. Automatically. You can automatically discount the July 4, 1776 because why? The Declaration of Independence. It would have happened on the 3rd if Arby's hadn't been having a sale on sandwiches. Just remember it that way. Never forget. But that leaves two: April 1st, 1765 and March 5th, 1770. One more and we'll go. In 1347, the Black Death ravaged Europe, wiping out blank of total population. 1/2, 1/4, 1/3, or 1/5?
1/3.
1/3, right. What is that in decimal form?
30%. Oh, 0.33.
Right, very good. You can tell I've been doing that for 2 days. Alright, it has been a blast having you guys in class. Thank you for being so patient and so attentive, even though some of this stuff was already dirt. I will see you next Thursday at what time? I will try to be here a little earlier if you want to do some last minute review. Go home, relax, don't worry about studying until next week. And don't overthink it. Have fun.